the Around the NFL podcast.
Taking applications for Mark's next pet team.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. AFC, NFC Championship game preview edition. How about that? Dan Hanzus here with heroes Marc Sessler, Gregg Rosenthal. Boys, I'm looking at this. I'm looking. And Mark, I know you like new things. You always like something new.
Sure, like
Not a takedown, just the reality.
No, but it's a reality. Many humans would agree.
So if we get Baltimore and San Francisco at the end of this weekend, that's a rematch of Super Bowl 47. If we get KC at San Francisco, that's a rematch of Super Bowl 54. Detroit, a whole new world.
We're somewhere else.
Never appeared in a Super Bowl. In fact, I believe this is their second NFC title game, period.
We also are getting a rematch of 38-6, the classic Ravens beatdown from Week 8, Ravens-Lions, if that happened. Just saying. That was a tough one.
That does not count as a rematch.
Week 8 feels so far away. But yeah, so the Lions are the newbie here. Now the Chiefs are the old guard. The Chiefs are, if you are somebody that wants something fresh, and as much as I love Patrick Mahomes, and obviously Chiefs Kingdom loves Patrick Mahomes, and America is growing a bit weary with the Chiefs, I feel like, Mark, even if you're a Ravens hater,
which you are,
it might behoove us, if we want something new, to get, even though the Ravens have been in this game periodically throughout the century, to get the Chiefs out. Maybe that happens this weekend. Who knows?
I think the Lions are the great hope of newness. Don't try to sell me on any of the other three teams. And I like the intro talked about my pet teams or this.
I mean, Ravens haven't even been in this weekend for 12 years.
Greg, you have a Ravens fetish, and I acknowledge that. Like, I have a different relationship.
No, I get it, but you're saying new. We've done this show for a long time.
Lamar's never been to the Super Bowl.
I was at the Niners-Ravens Super Bowl, and it felt like 2 days ago to me. We were just there. The lights, the whole thing went out.
It feels like we've been doing this show a long time. We have never had a Ravens conference championship preview here. This is the first time.
So, but I did have to write the NFL.com when the electricity went out.
You did the blackout story.
Yeah. It was like, you write this. It's like, I don't know what's happening. Is
you know why you were up?
Visited the Superdome?
Because I wrote the Beyonce halftime show article.
Right. Just people getting banged left and right. So.
We're all about to die. Who's on this one? Sessler. All right. I'll never forget that. And by the way, Jim Harbaugh was the coach back then for the Niners, and he's going to be coming up in conversation a little bit later today. I'll never forget that Super Bowl because my father, with your help, that was the first time, went to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Took him to the game. My dad, who I would never dismiss in any work scenario.
Right.
But if you had a chance to do that with your dad, it's just something to think about. And the first thing that seriously came to my mind when the lights went out was, oh no, I got my dad to the Super Bowl, and now I'm going to get him killed. That was like my first fear, that we were all about to, like my mom was going to be mega pissed.
That's a quality instinct.
My dad's first Super Bowl as well.
Was it?
They shared it, yeah.
Were you frightened for your dad?
I generally...
Greg was assigning articles to you and me. He was not concerned about his...
I wasn't. I figured, this is weird, but it'll probably work out. I'm an optimistic guy.
That is such a Greg outlook.
But it was like...
it's not a big deal.
It was definitely a big deal, but I was like, well, this will probably get fixed. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, it did.
I think it turned.
As someone that lived in New Orleans, shout out to Entergy. A lot of power outages in New Orleans all the time, so it felt familiar.
Why would you give them a shout out then?
They're the worst. They're the worst.
And guess what? There will be a Super Bowl in New Orleans next year, but there hasn't been one since that game, and there's a reason why, because it's the best place for a Super Bowl, for it to get punished and get sent to the the rubber room, as it were, just like Jero World, by the way. All right, let's get on track here. We got a lot to get to. We have guests coming up in a little bit. James Palmer, one of our favorites with NFL Network. He has been embedded with the Chiefs, covering that team and covering this AFC finale. It is the season finale of the AFC on Sunday, and he's going to join us in a little bit. And on the NFC side of things, and also to break down all the news that's going on, the great Cynthia Freeland will be in studio, so let's get to it without further ado. Game one. Oh, there's two games. How about that? There's only two games on Sunday. We're still clearly going way over an hour. Just 2 games. We'll find a way.
We'll balloon it out, whatever we need.
Well, we've got 2 guests. We've got news at the back end. It's
going to be, it's a slam dunk.
Going over an hour.
Anyway, first game, 3 p.m. Eastern, CBS, Nance, Romo, Wolfson. You hear our boy Mad Dog get after Romo?
Mad Dog. I would say, I thought you said it well. When Mad Dog is right, he's right. When he gets onto something and he feels his passion and his heart starts to flare up, there's no one else like him.
Well, what are you talking about, though? What did he get on?
So Mad Dog,
Yeah.
he went after Tony Romo, who attempted to drop a historical nugget about an old Steelers moment, and
the immaculate reception.
But it was like the holy roller, all this other stuff, and like
just make it clear. So he says immaculate reception on the ball that gets tapped out of bounds by the tight end on the first play from scrimmage.
Right.
Which is the wrong reference because Immaculate Reception was a totally different play with Franco Harris.
Which I would imagine Romo knows, but
the Raiders was the holy roller when the ball was knocked forward and scored a touchdown and the rule was changed. Anyway, Russo is fired up about that.
Russo goes absolutely crazy, and there are 2 female hosts, stationed about 7 yards behind him, just watching him up like David Letterman, up against the camera, going absolutely nuts.
They're just watching him like a tail is growing out from above his butt.
True Mad Dog.
Anyway, so Romo didn't get demoted, though, so that's good. He's got this game.
Got the Super Bowl, too.
Got Patrick Mahomes again.
Tracy Wolfson. Now, listen to this. They also got Evan Washburn on the sideline, who, is Patrick Bateman, but well-adjusted. And then Feely. Just why not? Chiefs at Ravens. How about that? Mahomes v. Lamar. The Ravens, the line has not moved here. It's Ravens by 3.5. And that should be, you could even make the case that it should be higher. They're home. They've been playing dominant football, Greggy, for months. They just came off a game against an upstart Texans team where they just seized control at the half and really flexed their muscles. And in a lot of ways, it feels like this is their year, but man, just like the Bills thought this was their year. It's cool to say it's your year, but then you have to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and teams aren't good at that too.
There is something to that. If Mahomes is the Jordan, and he kind of is, that you have to. I know many teams couldn't do this. You have to get past it. Or if he's Brady, if they're the Patriots, you have to get past him. And I think of some Patriots years like 2006. When the Colts finally got past the Patriots, or even, I forget which year it was, where they didn't have an offensive line and Steven Jackson was the running back. Might have been 15 where the Broncos, or 13 when the Broncos barely got past. Those were bad Patriots teams, and then they got to the playoffs, and suddenly they were great Patriots teams.
Also, by the way,
again.
Calm down with bad. Greg, you say
know what
this
I mean?
Stuff all the time.
It's all
there
relative.
were no bad Patriots
but
teams.
In the same way that we were talking about this Chiefs offense, if we were doing a podcast back then, they weren't the same Patriots all season. And then it's almost like you get to the playoffs, and it's like, oh yeah, this is how we feel alive again. This is how we do what we do. This is how we rise up to a challenge. And offensively, I think they're going to be tested this week because I think the Ravens defense is the perfect defense to face this Chiefs group because they throw so many different looks at you before the snap, after the snap. Snap to snap. It's going to be different on second down and third down. It's going to be different first drive to the third drive. It's going to be different first half to the second half. And as good as Mahomes was last week, finally, if you watch us on YouTube, throwing the ball in rhythm. It didn't happen all season where he got to the back of his drop and he actually trusted MVS and made that slot fade to start the second half and all these great throws where it actually was Mahomes delivering the ball on time. I actually don't think that's going to be the way that they can win this game because I don't think they're good enough to do it. I think the Ravens make you hold the ball, and it's just going to have to come down to Patrick Mahomes holding the ball a little extra and making Patrick Mahomes magic, whether it's with his feet or then buying time and making crazy throws. I don't think they're going to beat the Ravens just running their conventional offense. Maybe you can run the ball fairly well during the game, but I don't think what worked against the Bills is going to work this week.
Yeah, and I we're looking at a Ravens team that against playoff teams from this season has put up 30 points on offense per game. Allowed just 17. They're these sort of polar opposite of these, like the Dolphins we've talked about, teams that go up against winning teams and what's special about them vanishes. The Ravens seem to become more embellished, more special when they go up against the best competition. And I think you're right. This is this is a huge test of Lamar Jackson, a huge test of the entire team to get over a Chiefs team that kind of feels like when they get challenged theoretically in the playoffs like this, like everything that we thought was a weakness of yours goes away. They became a completely different offense the last 2 weeks. I really do trust the Ravens, though, in this situation at home to be the best version of themselves. And I think that's an unbeatable team right now. That is an unbeatable team. They put it on the Niners. Like the Texans a week ago, we're talking about a team that completely separated the Cleveland Browns defense. The Ravens made them look like a team that had barely played all season. And now you go against Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, against the Ravens, last 2 times he's faced them, has been nearly perfect, but he is dealing with a different group of targets and wide receivers. I do wonder if around the corner there's that game that kind of reveals what was Kansas City's weakness all along was mistakes by your wide receivers, mistakes, drops, issues. Does that rear its head in this game, or do they continue this journey?
Yeah, and that's why it's kind of almost frustrating to watch the Chiefs from one perspective, is because the NFL and football in general doesn't feel like the type of sport you could just flip the switch and turn it on in the playoffs. And all their scheming was not effective on offense all season. They were trying very hard. It wasn't like a long NBA season where you're, resting guys, or you're kind of just trying to get through it, bank your 56 wins and then really start bowing up for the playoffs. They tried all season to get the offense right and couldn't do it. So watching them really thrive against the Bills all game long, to see Travis Kelce returning as a playmaker in the red zone, to see them find a downfield presence, as unlikely as it is, and MVS, that Isaiah Pacheco is playing like a star running back. Rashee Rice obviously is an every week contributor. It's kind of wild and crazy, and that would be my concern as a Baltimore fan. Is like all year I thought this was a great window for us because the Chiefs are down on some level for them, but they're not now. Now they're kind of like the Chiefs again. So what happens with that? And the other point I wanted to make, Greg, was that the 2 number 1 seeds both had scares in different ways. So that the Ravens were tied at halftime with a big special teams play going into the locker room. The Niners, we know what happened with them. They nearly get picked off, survive in the final minute of that game. To me, the Niners team, as I've said on the show, I'm concerned about, and I'm curious what we're going to get on Sunday. The Ravens team, I think that's the one where it's just like that battle-hardened them. They've had some issues in the divisional round playoffs and the Lamar era. To get over that hump, I don't have any concerns that the Ravens show up tight or not playing at a high level on Sunday, because they kind of knocked off that rust and any of that type of stuff with that win last week to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And now the extra rest they've got really 2 weeks of rest. I think you could see it last week on the offensive line in particular. But before we kind of move to the Ravens offense, like the reason I trust this Ravens defense to at least slow the Chiefs down here compared to where they've been the last couple of weeks is the middle of the field. All these teams attack you at off-ball linebacker, and they attack your safeties, and they find mismatches. And Andy Reid did a great job last week, and Patrick Mahomes did too. Now, who are they going to be attacking this week? Who's Kelsey's matchup going to be? It's going to be Kyle Hamilton. It's going to be Roquan Smith. It's going to be Patrick Queen. Like, they, watching that tape over again, just acted so fast. Like, they knew it was coming from the Texans offense, and they just react, and they pop, and they're athletic. And I think you win right now only with Rice and Kelce. And for the most part, that's over the middle of the field. So I think the Ravens are uniquely flexible enough to handle that. I do think for the Chiefs, they have to be encouraged at least that the offensive line on the interior, especially Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Tooney, were dominant. I mean, they won them that game. They made the Bills look like their little playthings. Like, it was a college team they were going up against. And I know Matabike and Michael Pierce, like, they're big guys up front, and that's a tougher matchup for them. But that gives you a chance. Like, if you can play heavy like the Chiefs did last week, they had 6 offensive linemen, 3 tight ends, quite a bit, 2 tight ends, quite a bit. They just played heavy. I don't think that's a crazy way to try to play the Ravens, to try to run it. It's not easy, but that to me seems easier than just going back and throwing.
Yeah, I don't think you have Joe Tooney in this game necessarily.
That is also a big problem.
That's a big loss. That's one of the toughest linemen in the entire league, and he's been a foundational piece for them. I really think that when they played the Bills, part of their success was that you played a banged up Bills defense, and like someone like AJ Klein got completely exposed.
Right.
And the Ravens come in with Roquan Smith. The trade last year I think was one of the best NFL trades of the last 5 years. It completely changed their
That's
defense.
why we did an emergency pod.
We did.
Yeah.
And we needed
You
to
gotta say
for
it-
multiple reasons.
It's almost like
Nailed
everyone
it.
benefited.
it's almost
Everyone
like
benefited.
That's why we did it.
Flashpoint Focus, but as an emergency pod.
Right.
We were kind of ahead
Yeah.
of it with.
No, we
Profile.
were. We absolutely were. And like, but
You're welcome, society.
and so is Patrick Queen also, because I think it changed someone's career trajectory there. Because I think Queen was sort of trending down.
They didn't pick up his fifth-year option.
Right,
It
but I think
probably
the
is his last few days with the Ravens here. These last.
It might be, but the
couple
two of them together have been completely unstoppable, and they are the second best team in the league against tight ends. And so if you are, this is different than last week when Kelsey, a revived looking Kelsey, now you're going against a different defense. And if you can take Kelsey out of this, you are putting those Chiefs wide receivers into a situation where they've got to perform. And I just don't know if I trust that. It's like the Chiefs are going to have to find a different way to win. This is a different defense than they played against Buffalo a week ago. And you're on the road. I don't care about the road thing so much with Mahomes, but it's like this defense has not been broken months in a row. Like, what's
Marlon
the
Humphrey
weakness
is
here?
also returning to practice. The weakness would be the cornerbacks. I mean, they're out there throwing Marlon Humphrey.
But not against this group of wide receivers.
Yeah,
That's all I'd say.
So Marlon Humphrey, their best cornerback, is returning. But yeah, it's Brandon Stevens, Arthur Millette, and Ronald Darby, who wasn't even on the team halfway through. He's bounced around. So like, if you could buy time, in theory, that's the weakness. But Humphrey returning would be big.
That would be big. Also returning would be big. Mark Andrews. So he was a full participant in practice on Wednesday. He's coming back from that gnarly ankle injury that's kept him out for a couple of months now. Very interesting to see if this is a thing, if he's going to really have a role in the offense. I would imagine if he does play, it would be a limited number of snaps. But as we know, and as we've been talking about, Isaiah Likely has really stepped up in Andrews' absence and become a playmaker. So it's just the Ravens just come at you in waves. It's such a deep roster on both sides of the ball, and I don't know, does it have a chance to get going? The 28 days later defense? That's what I like. I want to see this Baltimore swarming, zombie-like, rage virus-infected defense getting after the Pacheco, who runs with those elbows and knees out. What was the Pacheco said, though? Somebody said he runs like, oh, God, I got to remember this. He had a really good description of how he runs.
He bites, but
like he bites.
he didn't like that. I like the one I
That's
saw
right.
that he runs like he's dealing with trauma.
So you have the 28 days later defense against a running back who runs with trauma. And what will Kansas City's offense be able to do against this defense? Because it's a step up from Buffalo and anyone else.
he said you run like you bite people.
Mm.
I kind of like that description.
Which, by the way, what do
I like that.
what do the zombies do?
That's
Yeah.
what they
They run and bite people.
Typically, that's what they would do. They would bite you.
The thing that was most surprising last week, though, was that the Chiefs defense got kind of worked. Like, that looked like an old school Chiefs defense. I know they came up big and they made Buffalo work for these touchdowns and everything, but it was one of their worst games of the season without
They just didn't
a doubt.
give up big plays.
They got dominated for the most part for 3 quarters, and then they came up with some big plays. So I'm very curious, like, are they going to be a little more disciplined? Because one thing I saw in that game was they kept getting past Josh Allen, and then Josh Allen just kept running forward. And, like, what is the worst thing that you can do against Lamar Jackson is not be disciplined with those rush lanes. It happened to the Texans a couple times. Lamar just was so relaxed. He almost seems like too relaxed sometimes back there. He is just chilling. He's just chilling in the pocket. And then the second he sees it open, he takes off. But for the most part, he's just chilling back there. He's getting great protection from this offensive line. And that's where I think you saw the 2 weeks help. Ronnie Stanley looked healthier. The offensive line in general seemed healthier. They were dominant, and they have to really have a plan for kind of not getting, like, rushing Lamar, getting some heat, and they had to make Chris Jones, on the outside for those big plays because they weren't getting on the inside against Buffalo, but also not go past them and not let him run the ball. I think they almost have to kind of dare Baltimore to throw the ball deep into the outside. And if he beats you that way, and he had a number of good throws to the outside last week and deep, and they worked, then maybe you just deal with it, because otherwise, like, they will just pick you apart offensively.
I mean, I also say they survived like an incredible game by Josh Allen. So
yes,
Lamar Jackson's going to have his moments, and they can still survive. They haven't allowed more than 27 points in a game all year, and like I do trust this defense more than any other Chiefs defense we've seen. And like I guess you're going to have to allow Lamar Jackson to have his moments, but you got to just try.
You got to be better than you were a week.
I'm putting that. Right now, I'm happy to stand corrected on this one, but I'm putting the KC defense in the bucket of all these other defenses that I was told were great and then get lit up in a huge spot. They already got beat up last week, and then the Ravens. I would not be surprised if the Ravens have their way. That said, there is the Mahomes component of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes, as you may have heard, Mark, played his first true road game in the playoffs last week. And as you can imagine, a lot of fuel to the fire to be on the road, to be an underdog and all that. This is his post-game locker room comments to his teammates after the big victory in Buffalo.
Hey, they asked for it. Yeah. And they got what they asked for. Hey, but he said it. This shit ain't done. We come back next week ready to go.
And turn it up a notch.
Chiefs on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Chiefs!
All right, and with that said, let's welcome in our guest because that's a Patrick Mahomes that these guys, the great ones, they're always looking for a new challenge, just like James Palmer in his personal life. And for Patrick Mahomes right now, it is this idea of being doubted, being on the road, being viewed as the guy. Let's get them out of here so we can get some fresh blood in. James Palmer, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, guys. I'm glad we're starting with this because I've gotten a lot of heat on the Twitters and the X's about this Patrick Mahomes playing on the road. If you bring this up, Chiefs Kingdom will attack you like nobody's business.
What's got
them
all fired up?
And I don't
just
get
sick of it as a storyline.
Well, this is what they say, guys.
They're good.
I know, but this is what they say, guys. They go, well, that Super Bowl in Tampa, that wasn't a road game.
Well, how'd that go?
It was a home game for Tampa. I was like, well, listen, guys, that went terribly wrong. Like, your offense could not function. I was in that stadium. It was half full. I was in some sort of box with the girl from Pitch Perfect and the guy from Pitch Perfect. What's his name? Adam Devine of some sort, I think.
Wow.
And there were very few of us watching. I don't understand why they were so angry about us bringing this up.
You know what? We don't need to talk about the COVID
really
Super Bowl, James. Like, the COVID Super Bowl was in the middle of a global health catastrophe. So let's just throw that out as an opinion or an example of anything. Come on.
Yeah. I get it. Like, you had the weekend
Adam
running
Devine,
around in the
though.
walls by himself. It was weird.
Adam Devine, though, nice hang for you during a strange Super Bowl event.
And the difference, one of the many differences, like at that point, their offensive line is falling apart, and you've been covering this team all year. And one reason I don't think anyone should have been digging any dirt on them, as rough as the offense has looked, is like the fact is it's still Mahomes with Andy Reid and the best defense he's ever had, and their offensive line playing outstanding. And I guess that was, if you have Mahomes and an offensive line, I don't care how poorly the rest of the group is playing, they got to have a chance. Like, how has the vibes been this week and everything around this team in terms of this challenge? Because they got to feel like this challenge against the Ravens defense is another step up from the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's Greg, it's a massive step up from the walking wounded they faced at that game I was in Buffalo. I mean, this group is far and away different than that Buffalo group that they figured out a way to put 11 guys on the field. I think this group is completely different if Joe Thuney can't play. And talking to people that I know that are in the know in Kansas City, it's going to be a long, long stretch for him to try to go in this game on Sunday. And I've talked to a number of people that said he's really the guy over the last couple of years that has made this offense go. If you remember, they brought him in that big free agent contract. I think it was after that game in Tampa we're talking about. And he's been that mentor to Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, the center and the guard on the other side, to really give them that anchor of the offensive line and the way that he's kind of run that entire group. He's really the guy that makes it go. So I do think that interior has been a big part of some of the success that they've struggled through some of this guys. I do think they've just tried to help out their offensive line a bunch. I heard you guys talking about the number of tight ends that they've been putting out there. You haven't heard Donovan Smith's name at the left tackle spot since he's returned from the neck injury. I think the body was benefiting from getting off those legs for a couple of weeks. He's been a little bit better than he was during the season, and Wanya Morris was out there for him. But if he has time, Patrick Mahomes has time, he's going to find ways to make plays. I think that's the part that we're always kind of bringing up. And specifically in the postseason, it's not just the scrambling ability. He runs more on his own. Like, he puts the offense on his back at times. It's just going to be, and we can talk about it, the matchup of Kelsey, if he can get free. And then it's really him and Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco. That's kind of their offense. They ran it the best they did this entire year, they think, in Buffalo. That's probably the best game plan Andy Reid thought Matt Nagy has had this season. But again, it's really kind of been those three guys. I'm going on here, but I do want to make this point. They feel like the offense has been better since Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney have been injured. Like, no lie. It's just
kind of makes. I mean, it makes sense. They
at
pick
the receiver spots.
Yeah,
it's better for us. Yeah, they thought they were playing too many players. Honestly, rotating too many receivers. Nobody was getting in a rhythm, and that kind of those two injuries happening. They feel like that's actually benefited the offense.
All right, so let's go off of that, because right now, cut to Kansas City, 60 feet below the complex, you've got Andy Reid surrounded by like 6 boxes of Chinese food, cooking up some sort of trick play. They love to do this on a weekly basis.
You've been there.
Well, right.
Mark.
So, like, you're talking about like two players are better not being part of the offense on some level. You've got your Kelseys, your obvious guys. What's the X factor? Like, I want you to predict a guy that we're going to be talking about Sunday night that we're not expecting. Last week it was MVS. It's like these guys that have been hot and cold all year. What's the trick? What's the happening? What's the secret sauce individual that they're building around?
James, before you answer that question, I'm curious, since you brought it up, because I didn't know about this underground bunker.
Yeah.
The guy that delivers the Chinese food, does he get access down like an elevator shaft, or does Andy have to go up to get?
No, that's a middleman. A middleman, obviously, who knows. You got codes, you got handprints.
An intermediary.
Little optical scan?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Optical scan for Chinese food. All right, go
I
ahead,
had
James.
to take... Yesterday, the elevators weren't working, and I had to take the Taylor Swift path,
right?
The underground path to get to where it needs to be. So these things are a big haps. I'm not sure if the delivery guy and Taylor ever have crossed paths down there in the secret bunker.
More importantly, have you crossed paths with
listen,
Taylor through all this, James?
With Taylor?
Yeah.
A number of times. I got some free jeans because of one of my encounters with
Wait, what?
Wow.
All right. We're going to get to the X Factor.
No.
Mark.
I
want to hear about
we
that.
can talk about that later. Yeah.
No, tell me about him now. I need to hear
well,
about these jeans.
if you are lucky enough to get to get a primo spot to do the video of Taylor, which I've done it by accident a couple times. I was trying to get Josh Allen, and then all of a sudden she walked by, and then my video goes viral, and then she was wearing a pair of jeans. And the company hit me up on the gram and was like, "Hey, can we use your video? We want to profile she's wearing our jeans." And I said, "Sure. I guess this is a world I'm not a part of. I guess."
You should have held out
so
for
I
more.
sent them the video, and then they said, what size are you? We'll send you some clothes.
Oh, it's getting personal.
And so that's how this world works, I guess. Yeah.
I'm moderately disappointed because I thought maybe Taylor was the source of the jeans, but it was okay. It's still cool though.
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
All right, now to Mark's
Well,
question.
no, I mean, it's, you can go in any direction you want, but at this point.
Yeah, now we've derailed. Listen, I do think I don't know if they have that player, Mark. I really don't. And when you say like a secret sauce, it might be like what teams have used against them. I mean, I thought Joe Brady had a brilliant game plan for what he was working with the Buffalo Bills, and it was keeping Patrick Mahomes and the offense off the field. And that might be something that the Chiefs are looking at in terms of, can we control this game? We have seen, and this is something in this postseason, guys, I've really been curious about. Like, Patrick is obsessed with Tom, like obsessed with Brady in terms of learning from him. It's a big reason why he wanted the backup quarterback that he has right now in his building, because he just got done working with Tom Brady. It's just he wants to emulate his game. And can he find ways, like we've seen Brady do in the past in the postseason, to where if something's not there, does he just not care about stats, not care about anything, and lean on something else? And we are kind of seeing that. Like, he's wanted and encouraged the staff to lean into Pacheco, to lean into this defense, to play possession game. All of these different things that we just haven't heard in Kansas City over the years. They've just been something you just are going like, a possession game. Like, no, like run the ball. Like, that's not Andy. That's not Patrick. But that is the way Mahomes has been thinking in terms of other ways to find ways to win. And I think that gene we're all kind of looking at, if that's there, because we're calling him kind of the next Brady, if that's there on finding other things to lean on to just win a game. I think they've had to do that at times this season, and we'll see if they can find a formula against Baltimore.
I gotta say, I've seen
I don't know what you can do.
I know I've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire taken out of mothballs the last couple of weeks and have a little more juice than I can remember him seeing. He's a couple weeks away from being a free agent. 4 years after taking him in the first round, maybe
Taking up blitzes,
right? Maybe
making runs.
Maybe he'll be the surprise, or maybe
Using
it's
that
on
vertical.
On defense. I was shocked last week. Shamari Connor, who I wasn't familiar with, a fourth-round rookie, showed up, and he made a lot of plays for that defense as an injury replacement. I was like, man, they did it again. They found another mid-round guy in the secondary who's like, this is kind of how L'Jarius Sneed became a guy. Is suddenly in the playoffs as a rookie, he was doing things, and then Shamari Connor was awesome. Just defensively, talking to them this week, like what have they talked about being the keys? Because one thing that struck me watching the Ravens game, they made pretty huge lineup changes that no one really was talking about. Like Justice Hill just became their starting running back. Way more touches. He's a little bit of a different offense than Gus Edwards last week. And Odell Beckham was benched. I know he started the game, but Rashad Bateman kind of became their second receiver. Nelson Aguilar's the guy in 3 receiver sets, and Beckham only played about 20 snaps in that game to 45 for Bateman. I think they see Bateman having a little higher upside. So the Ravens actually rolled out some different stuff in their playoff game. What has the Chiefs defense talked about wanting to stop?
Greg, I think it really is, how can you confuse Lamar pre-snap? I mean, and that's really going to be Spags' biggest goal. And it's because they have, and I've talked to Trent McDuffie about this, and this is going to be a big part of this game. I think him blitzing from that corner spot, when I talked to people in Buffalo prepping for that game, they were like, we think he's the best blitzing corner in football. That's the way the Bills went about it. And him coming from that inside, from that slot spot, bringing some extra pressure might be a part of this game plan. But the point is, talking with Trent, it's like, I play 3 positions. Justin Reed plays 3 positions. L'Jarius Sneed does that. Willie Gay does that. And if we have the ability to have these late rotations on Lamar, and we can do it even after the ball is snapped to where he doesn't know who's playing where, and we can get the ball out of his hands quickly, that to me seems like their game plan. And there is some similarities. I'm not going to say Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson run the football in the same manner, but they did feel like some of the things they wanted to do to Josh Allen they can use against Lamar, which is the way you rush with your lanes up front. And if you're going to bring pressure, you're just eliminating some of the lanes that he can run through. But if you can be disciplined up front, which they weren't in the first half against Allen, and they made some adjustments and were in the second half, that you can make sure he doesn't get out wide, and you kind of shut the pocket in from both. I'm in a tiny box, so you can't see my hands. You gotta squeeze it in from the sides there. You get a little tiny, there you go. Now we've taken it wide. You bring it in from both sides, and you don't let him escape kind of out wide, and you kind of force him up front. That's kind of the plan they had for Allen. I would see that being somewhat similar for Lamar as well.
You saw right through that, James. Actually, people don't realize it. We have the box get 4% smaller every minute. It's a bit of a weird power play we do with our guests.
Yes.
You picked up on it.
I like that. It's kind of like Willy Wonka.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've said it all, James. And I will say one more thing before we say goodbye. You've dealt with some weather stuff the last couple of weeks. It looks like we got Baltimore. It's going to be warm, unseasonably warm, but rainy. So you're going to get potentially out of the bitter cold, but you're going to have to get that slicker out once more.
I can get the slicker out. Listen, in Buffalo, that was like all the talk in the post-game locker room. It wasn't like we won. It was like everybody on the Chiefs team was like, what's the temperature in Baltimore? Like, that's all the guys cared about. Was like, can we get out of the frigid temperatures?
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and giving us the info, and hopefully we'll see you in Vegas in a couple weeks.
Guys, this is real nice. This has been a gas.
Nice.
That hair is going to to stay perfect,
Pleasure's
even in
all
the
on this
rain.
side.
Yes, thank you, James.
We love that, man. James Palmer.
Gold. See you guys.
See ya. Bye.
See you, buddy.
Very nice. Love James. JP, one of the good guys.
Quality head of hair. There's no question.
Hair.
That's just the way it is.
You know what? Hair respects hair. He's got it.
You're referring to yourself respecting him. Okay.
Yeah.
We like your hair too.
Let's make the pick. Let's pick this game. It's for me, it's the easier of the two games. I think this is the Ravens' moment. I think I think Baltimore, like I said, survived the whatever butterflies there might have been and any kind of demons from their early their past with Lamar in the playoffs by really kind of burying the Texans in the second half. And I just think their depth on both sides and the way they swarm on defense and Lamar just having that year is what you need a team like this to take down Mahomes in the playoffs. And I think Mahomes will be back on this stage maybe as soon as next January. But I think this year he's going to take a back seat. In fact, I'm going to lock up the Baltimore Ravens to go back to the Super Bowl. How about you guys?
I'm with you. I like the Ravens to win. I like the Ravens to win by more than 3.5. I do think it'll be close, though. I mean, can you just imagine the Chiefs getting blown out? I guess I just can't do it, because it never happens. I know
Happened in the Super Bowl.
Super Bowls,
Another great defense in Tampa Bay that got after the great
I know,
Mahomes.
but even this regular season where they were this lesser version and they lost a lot of games, all of them were close except for that one Broncos game. I just think they will be in it. I think they will make the Ravens earn it. There is something about this Ravens that as the game goes on, they just get heavier and heavier and stronger. So I wouldn't surprise me if the Ravens are losing, heading into the fourth quarter or something like that it's a tight game, but that the Ravens do pull away. Let's go low-scoring game, 24-17.
I think the Joe Tooney injury, if you point to that Super Bowl, what was the core reason that Kansas City
Offensive line could not protect.
they were just a different team without in that case, it was your tackles. But the Tooney injury is huge. That said, I'm going to go against the grain here against you guys. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are not the better team holistically, but I think they have this something about them where they don't care where they're playing. They don't care what they're doing. You've got this obsession with Tom Brady. Patrick Mahomes finds a way, whether injured, healthy, whatever the weather is, to get it done. And I think they nip the Ravens 27-24.
Hey, listen, keep picking against the Ravens. You might be right one day.
I mean, I would say if you're listening to this and I picked your team to win, you are doomed. Don't even witness the game.
I like it, though. It's a 3.5 point. I don't like it when we're all on the same side.
I want to go.
Give the champs their respect.
I like Baltimore 31-20. That's what I'll go with. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the other big game this weekend and hit some big news in the coaching carousel rankings. All right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Oh, it is Championship Sunday this weekend, and we are excited to talk these two big games. Mark, update on the DiGiorno front. Anything? And have you heard from ever since we talked about them again on the last show? The pizza giant, did they connect with you?
No, radio silence. I think it's it's a bit of a psychological tug of war. I accept that, and so my move is to stay in silent and wait and see what they do.
But you did hear from a shadowy league figure, as I understand.
I was told that my attempt to complain about not receiving DiGiorno product or literally just side money from the company was out of place because per our contract, us reading these ads is literally how we get paid.
That's what the money's for, I guess.
I was out of place, and I apologize not only to DiGiorno, but to anyone else.
That individual?
Yeah.
No.
Well, no, not to.
You're not wrong. You know why?
Why?
Because, yes, the money's one thing, but how about a couple DiGiornos in here?
I don't think that would be so hard.
A couple, what do they call them? What's their specialty, Mark? What are they? I know they have some.
Well, they have a wide range of specialties.
Just like I'm just asking for one Toyota Grand Highlander. I'm not asking for 10 or $1 million, not a sack of money.
Right. You could argue my request is even lesser.
One Highlander.
Right.
That's it. Anyway. It is time now for the NFC Game of the Week presented by DraftKings. And yes, there's only one game to choose. And it is a humdinger. It's the Detroit Lions. And speaking of the Detroit Lions, Michigan native Cynthia Freeland will be in just a little bit to break down the game and where she's at headspace-wise going into this. They head now, the Lions, to Santa Clara, the Big Bell Bottom, to get the 49ers. Great. The spread also stayed right where it was when we talked about it earlier this week. It's the Niners getting 7. So the betting public seems to feel strongly that the Niners, as the number 1 seed, will carry on here and beat the Lions. That's it. I like this Lions, the juice around this team. I have to say, if you go back, not even to week 1 when they beat the defending champion Chiefs, if you go back, Greggy, to week 18 last year when they beat the Packers and Aaron Rodgers and ended their season, that to me was the true beginning of this kind of rocket ride that the Lions are on now, and they survived a long season. They navigated their way through the playoffs with 2 electric home games. And now I just have a hard time seeing, as much as I think San Francisco is the better team, Detroit going down easy at this point. Not with this coach and not with what we've learned about this organization over the last year and a half.
Man, I hope you're right, because it'd be one of the great football stories we've had since we started.
Imagine the Lions in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. What a vibe that would be.
And it wouldn't just be, hey, Detroit's back. That would be a great story anyways. It's this particular team and the way they do it. And I just think they have to attack San Francisco when the Lions have the ball. Like, that's the mismatch. They have to be special. Jared Goff made a lot of great throws last week. Like, he has to be even greater. They won up front last week. I thought the Packers won up front last week. They're going to have to do that again. They're going to have to play their best offensive game and just hope that the defense can make a few plays. But this is ultimately an offensive team. That's how they've gotten this far. That's how they're going to get further. And I think they're going to look at the edges of San Francisco, because when you watched that game from a week ago, Packers against the 49ers, the Packers threw a lot of different run schemes at them, kind of like the Rams do as well. And they mostly worked, and they got a little away from it, and the 49ers made some adjustments late in the game. But, man, when they threw the ball to the outside on those pitches to Aaron Jones, or they had the swings, like, they won basically every single time. A lot of it was to Chase Young's side of the field. It was a way to kind of stay away from all that power in the middle of the 49ers. And I think the Lions are very well built to do that. You have Penei Sewell, who's an all-pro right tackle. You have Taylor Decker, who's a great left tackle. They're very coordinated in terms of their offensive line. They will be without Jonah Jackson, which is a huge loss for them. Their replacement last week, Osika, really struggled. So that's a big loss. But can they keep attacking, especially the run game on the outside, and lean into where their best players are? And to me, that's Sewell and that's Gibbs. Can that combo just come at you over and over again?
Yes. Like, they were built when when this whole operation began, the priority was put on offensive line. And we're going to win in a way that, matches what Detroit's about. Jackson out is a big deal. Frank Ragnow your center is dealing with an ankle injury, a toe injury, a knee injury, and a back injury. So even if he somehow gets in there,
he finished the game though, so he did. Probably.
I mean, these guys at this point, you're dealing with, like, there's no part of your body that's not hurting. But I love what they did last week, and I know it was against the Bucs defense. It's a different situation against the Niners, but they made a statement with a 14-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. They had 2 other 10-play touchdown drives. They had another scoring drive that was 65-plus yards. Long marches, keeping the ball out of the hands of the Niners. And I think they can win by just simply doing and being who they are. Like, the way that they were built is a good opponent for the Niners. And to me, this game is one where, unlike the one we just talked about, it moves beyond, for me, like, next-gen stats and all the numbers and all the compiled figures and facts. Like, the Detroit Lions just feel like this kind of sports team that you look back on, like baseball teams from certain teams from the 70s and 80s that captured the city. We've seen that in football. We've seen it in every sport. And not to be general about it or, pie in the sky, but the Lions, to me, it's like, I kind of love the fact that Jared Goff is just from California. The idea that you're going to go to the West Coast and be awed by the fact that you're playing at a different time in a visiting stadium in Cal. I don't think any of it matters.
He grew up there.
He did.
Yes. Yeah.
Nevada, California.
Home game.
Literally, it is his home, and it's like something about this Lions team feels like a team of destiny to me. And I think that the way that we looked at the Bills is the way I look at Shanahan and the Niners just a little bit. There's every reason to think that they're the better team in multiple levels, but, like, there is pressure on the Niners because their postseason journey has been rough and tumble. Shanahan has this He's 7-3 in the playoffs, I believe, with the Niners, but they have lost in big moments. And it's like, I think that I could see their butts getting tight if the Lions are hanging around there in that third quarter, early fourth quarter.
I like it. I like your passion, Mark. you think about the game too, because the Lions are this lovable underdog within the context of this game right now. But it's the Niners are weird in the sense that they are this Goliath, right? But their quarterback is, I don't know if you heard this, Mr. Irrelevant. Like, I think we're so used to it now that we're sleeping on the guy that was the last pick in the draft last year could be going to the Super Bowl if he has if his team has their way on Sunday
against the first overall pick.
And, well, yeah, there's that angle of it too, and it's just like, and I'm not going to belabor it because I hit it pretty hard last Sunday and during the week, but it is Purdy that's the question. I don't feel like the rest of the San Francisco operation is going to crack under the pressure, and I'm not even necessarily saying it's pressure with Purdy, but it's just has any doubt crept into his mind. It's quarterbacking and really any sport, but especially in quarterbacking, it's so much mental, and his confidence allowed him, Greg, to soar and become a true MVP candidate this year. But what happened on Christmas night in Baltimore, what happened in last week's game for 3.5 quarters, what headspace is the QB in going into this game? Because now he's playing to go to the damn Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's a massive stage for a guy that was never a pristine prospect, has had his issues in recent weeks. It's a huge, huge responsibility to take a team all the way to the bowl.
Yeah, last week was concerning because he wasn't seeing the field well. To me, he's pretty consistent in who he is. He's aggressive. He's not a game manager. He's going to go for it, and he did last week. Like, when rewatching it, it wasn't quite as bad as I remembered, but it was particularly bad in the 3 drives before the game-winning drive. And there's another world. The Packers had the ball 3 times through no. Purdy wouldn't have done anything different. The Packers had the ball 2 or 3 times where they could have put the game away, and they just didn't. They kept giving them chances, and then Purdy did step up, and I do think that should, mentally
that will
help
help
him.
And
then I think it's the rain. The rain was a factor too, although it was also his decision making. So you can't just put it on his throwing. But look, he made the right reads in that final matchup, and as much as you don't think of the Packers as a good defense, maybe that's even a better matchup, because one thing that I think has been pointed out when Trent Williams was out, and then I was reminded of it again last week, it's like, this offensive line's really not that great. Like, the Packers, I thought, kind of won up front on both sides of the ball, which was really surprising. But it kind of makes sense because they have talented players up front, and they just won their matchups. They won it in the run game and made life hard for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey made some plays, but in terms of the yards before contact, it was extremely low. They weren't getting much push, and they were putting a lot of pressure on Purdy, and that's what you have to do. Purdy fritzes out a little, like most quarterbacks. I know his numbers are good against pressure, but this was a different sort last week, and I just don't see the Lions doing that because they're one of the worst just teams in terms of just front four getting pressure. Hutchinson is that dude, but otherwise they have to send a lot of pressure. So to me, it's going to be a very boomer bust defensive approach where they throw a lot of blitzes, they throw a lot at them, they're willing to give up some big plays, they hope to make some big plays and force some turnovers, and hopefully that'll work. And you get burnt if Debo's in the game, and maybe you don't get burnt if Debo's not in the game.
Well, that's a huge. So that's like,
so big.
And what, like, how healthy will Debo Samuel be? They've been so different. I think last week, obviously, we know by now that Debo Samuel was baked heavily into their game plan that affected what happened against the Packers because they had to shift and use different players. If I'm the Lions, though, Aiden Hutchinson is the one guy getting sacks, the one guy really making a difference. You don't want to just station him against Trent Williams snap after snap. I try to find a way to move him around, but this Lions team, with all their ups and downs on defense, has been good against the run. They're the number 2 team against the run. They've held 14 of 19 opponents to under 100 yards on the ground. They've gone 12-2 in those games. So if you can find a way to suppress, to nullify Christian McCaffrey to some extent, and you force Brock Purdy into having to make big throws, right now the forecast, I kind of think this matters for Purdy just because of what we've seen this season. It is suggesting light rain. That's what they said a week ago too, but like then you're dealing with an incredible nature is just erupting on you. We'll see. Maybe it's sunny. We don't know.
I have the latest update.
What's the weather now?
On the Weather Corner.
Yeah.
Love this Weather Corner. Maybe a new seg. Weather Corner?
Well, we're running out of time to do Weather Corners.
Give us a little drop for Weather Corner in post, Eric, the producer. Right now, it looks like 73. That's nice. 73 a.m. clouds, p.m. sun, only a 6% chance of precipitation. So the small Brock hands probably not going to be an issue.
No, that
here,
sounds more like
barring
Detroit's
something
zone.
change.
Goff has sort of famously struggled in the rain and in inclement weather.
That's true
In the
too.
grass, yeah.
Another small hands guy. I mean, this is ridiculous. Us calling them small hands guy. And in the scheme of things, it's compared to like the average.
It's
NFL
all
quarterback.
relative.
Yeah.
It is all relative. Speaking of Jared Goff, we had this is again. It's being positioned as David versus Goliath on some level, but it's not quite that. The Lions have a lot of big-time players. Lions had a huge year. They're in the NFC title game for a reason. This is a fun little back and forth between Goff and a reporter. Think something wires get crossed a little bit here. This was enjoyable.
You guys got a lot of really good players, obviously, but maybe not.
Oh, thank you.
What's that?
I said thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe not viewed though as the superstars, like maybe the 49ers have or others.
All right, never mind.
But I mean, guys like St. Brown and you.
Yep. St. Brown was first team All Pro, so
Right.
so was Panay. Sorry, continue. I'm sorry.
That's a great way to kind of have some fun. Also, by the way, show that you're loose. Like, there's Jared Goff.
This is a different Jared Goff.
He's
than,
ready.
like-
He is ready for this game, but also pointing out, yes, stop looking at us like we can't match up on any level to the mighty San Francisco team. We got studs on this team, including a first-team All-Pro at our offensive line, at number one wide receiver. We're ready to rock.
Right, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs, I've been saying this, I think he's the second best running back in the league right now.
I wasn't even referring to him.
Right,
That's
I know.
another monster.
Like, so that's, I would get Gibbs is a monster. Sewell is right there with Trent Williams as like the best tackles in the NFL. Sam Laporta was second team All-Pro as a freaking rookie. It was a really
language, Greg.
made point, I think, by Goff because they are extremely talented. They're cohesive. They've been together a while. And you mentioned it's a different Goff. You're right. But he's also different on the field. Like, he was different in LA. I don't think they should feel bad about getting rid of Jared Goff, obviously, because of the results, but also because of the way he's playing. But the way he's playing now, and you give credit to Ben Johnson, but you mostly give credit to Jared Goff, I think he makes his reads faster. I think he gets to his second, his third read faster. I think he buys time just a little bit better. He's obviously not going to be Lamar Jackson, but he moves a little better in the pocket. There were a couple of throws last week where he's backpedaling. They're obviously better against the blitz. That's coaching, and that's Jared Goff, but they're great against the blitz. That used to be his bad thing. And there's more outside throws. Think of some of his most impressive throws last week. One of them was like deep into the outside to Reynolds, another one to St. Brown. Like, that was not something you saw Jared Goff doing. So he is a legitimately better quarterback. He is a top 10 quarterback, 8 quarterback, whatever you want to be, than when we last saw him.
What'd you say,
in the
top
play.
8?
Right now.
In many ways, he has been for the last.
For some reason, I bumped up against that. I would have to kind of go through it, but certainly on the fringe of the top 10, which is, again, looking where he was when Los Angeles dumped him to where he is now. I want to talk to someone who knows all about this team.
Oh, yeah.
She knows everything.
Yeah.
I mean, but she is a Michigan native who has a chance to do something that's never happened in her lifetime. I mean, this person could be 144 years old, and it would have never happened in their lifetime because the Lions had never been to the Super Bowl. But now, in her Lions t-shirt, Cynthia Freeland is ready for the game of her life as a fan. Cindy, welcome back to Around the NFL.
Well, let's just hope I
you?
don't get the last time. I don't make any headlines like the last time.
Oh, don't worry about that. I believe that was
I don't think
excised from the show,
That's not
as I
happen
recall.
this time.
Never.
Cynthia, how
or
are
maybe I do.
you?
Who cares? I'm great. I just got back from Detroit. It was really special.
We had Colleen on the show
Yep.
on Wednesday, and she obviously spent the game with you.
Poor Colleen.
And said it was a very special experience to be there with someone it meant that much to them, the game.
It meant
which did.
so much to me.
Why did it mean so much to you as a Michigan native?
Well, number one, I'm the daughter of a General Motors employee for his entire career. And in 2008, like, the whole thing just got blown to shreds. It wasn't great. It was sad. And, especially my dad has a lot of pride, this GM pride, American muscle, all that. And to see it take this big hit felt so, like, very parallel to the Lions having recently come off an 0-16 season. So it was kind of this, like, amazing parallel between this, like, city and, like, things were just bad. Like, it was not good for a while. And now to see, like, this turnaround and to have some hope.
Yeah.
Hope is a terrible investment thesis, but it's pretty fun.
Very Cynthia term there.
Wow, you were getting so emotional that you brought us back. But you had it. You had it. You had that moment in Detroit. Like, now does it feel like it's a little house money, or now this is the biggest game of your fan life?
It feels a little like, to be honest with you, it's kind of both, because I wasn't expecting to win 2 home games, to have 2 home games, let alone to win 2 home games. But it feels like there's this opportunity now, and it's like, we're like, please, like, Jordan Love isn't great yet. Like, wait till, because this division is gonna get better. Like, let's just like capitalize on the moment. So it does feel special. I was actually talking to some of my friends on the team that are in like the operations part, and they didn't even already have in place like what would happen if they went, right? Like, so this week they had to go, like the team had to like go to Detroit, go to Las Vegas and like pick the hotel. Like, they didn't even have that.
Wow.
That's wild.
But a lot, I mean, to be fair, a lot of teams, that's not a normal thing. But like, I'm sure Andy Reid has like, well, let me just thumb through this. It's okay. But like, some people don't have that luxury.
I want to ask you something, because like growing up on the East Coast, my first kind of concept of Michigan and Detroit was that Michael Moore documentary, Roger and Me, which you said your dad is attached to GM. It painted a very bleak picture of what was happening to that part of the country. And it always kind of colored my thought of what the Lions were and their fans. And like, this is happening now, and you're you're drenched in analytics, and like, it's how you like, it's your point of view through football. But then something about this Lions team we just talked about, it's like there's this inevitable kind of energy around them and belief in themselves. And like, you've got your models and how you like would break down a game, but like, how do you factor in what is happening with the Lions from like a human energy front into how you analyze football?
Well, there's a couple things. Thank God I do all of my coding blind. Like, I don't know which I mean, I can probably guess if I were to look into it, but I do it all blind because that's the only way you can do it. You have to you name it weird things that mean nothing to you, so then it pops out and you're like, darn it, it's the Niners. Because they are, in terms of the analytics, they are absolutely the stronger team. They should be favored, and they're all the things are in there. But you look at the things that are recent trends, and the fact that the Lions are able to buck the things that have been wrong for them. So, for example, this last game, instead of giving up really deep plays, they actually were pretty vulnerable to the intermediate level of the middle of their defense. So it's not to say that it's better, it's just different, and that was able to give them just enough of a push to go up ahead of the Bucs and stay there, which was kind of cool to see them addressing some of their issues. So the math does support that they're addressing some of their issues. This game is not, to what my math says, it's closer than 7 points, but it's not a game where it's not, I can't factor in grit. I mean, I literally was the most, I was like the most inappropriate person. I'm fine with this. I'm happy to get in trouble for it because I stand by it. After the game was over, I went down. I just had to see a Dan Campbell presser in person. And I'm like in a Lions shirt. I don't think you're supposed to. All of these like really like very like serious, really good journalists, like people. Mitch Albom was there, and I'm like sitting there like, and I'm like, does anyone want to take a shot with me? Like, like I'm like, I don't care. Like, this is cool. Like, it's positive. It's, like, let's just have a little fun in this room until he walks in. So
what was the album book people you talked to in heaven?
Tuesdays with Maury or whatever.
Multiple books.
Yeah, but I like fangirled on him. I was like, I'm so happy to meet you. I'm sorry, but I want to take shots with somebody. I'm like, I can't find my friends yet. So
what did Album say?
He was like, that's great. We should all be so happy, because they were all trying to be serious. I wasn't going to ask any questions. I just wanted to see Dan Campbell's energy.
Sure.
Yeah, no, he was great. Nice. He was great. They were all great to me. No one was mad at me for saying that, but it probably just not what you're supposed to do in that scenario.
Mitch actually texted me. He's like, Cynthia,
she sucks.
She didn't comport herself with
that girl. So lack of professionalism right there.
So your study, your models say this is a close game, but everything, as much as you don't want it to be, the analytics tell us that the Niners are the team that escapes and gets to Vegas.
Yeah. I'm not happy about it.
Like, how much is the last 4 weeks? Because that's where I don't think it's as unique as it feels that, like, the Chiefs offense suddenly found itself, or that the Packers suddenly, to me, looked like they had a chance to win the Super Bowl. It feels crazy, but they could have won that game. They could have won the next game. And so how much is it like you take all the numbers from the season, but then you just look at the last 3 weeks, because that is how sometimes Super Bowls are decided.
100%. So my models weight recency a little bit more. So because all of the coaches tend to watch about 4 weeks of film heading into games, I overweight the most recent 4 weeks of data just a little bit. So they count as extra, if you will, right? So you're looking at that. My bigger problem in this matchup, there's two things that really stand out, are the biggest things that the Lions have to overcome. One, their O-line is banged up. There's no two ways about it. They're going to have a backup at the guard position. Yikes. And Frank Ragnall's not 100%. He seems to be doing better, and he's an awesome guy.
Against Armstead, who's healthy finally. Hargrave,
right.
Kinlaw played well last week against their strength.
That's a problem. The other problem is Jared Goff is awesome at throwing in breaking routes, right? We saw Jordan Love show us kind of the formula to upset the Niners, which is outside the numbers passes. That is not what this Lions team that doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just saying it's a lower probability because we haven't seen them do it as frequently. Not to say they can't, just to say it's harder to imagine that happening. And then lastly, the best area of the defense in the back is the middle third of the back, which is right where those in-breakers go. So it's just unfortunate that those things, again, they could figure things out. Ben Johnson, those teams that have their grubby paws all over him.
Could be his last game.
I do love that angle. Like, that to me is one of the most intriguing things. Like Ben Johnson versus Kyle Shanahan. If you were going to power rank play callers in the NFL right now, certainly McVay and McDaniel would be in that mix. But this might be the top two. Battle of the play callers against, I think, could be vulnerable defenses. I know the 49ers have a lot of stars, but to me, everything you're saying about like the Lions defense, I hear that, and it's like, I'm just like, just outscore them. Just win 33-30.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
could be the route.
I actually do I'm taking my analytics hat off here for a second and putting my fan hat on, and I'm actually really glad it's not the Packers, to be fair, because that Packer team coming into Detroit on Thanksgiving, I understand, I know your gripes with the defensive coordinator. We got it, Greg. Like, but like
this isn't the only show where my hosts get very annoyed with me.
No, I love
check out Game Debut on Friday. Yes, please.
But the truth is there's something about teams that know each other, and it just makes it closer, right? Like your Ravens, think about it for the Ravens. You felt like maybe the Browns had a better chance of knocking them off than perhaps another opponent would, right? So because of that knowledge of each other, it just, and the poetry of the stupid Packers beating the Lions would have been terrible.
You don't have to worry about it. You're in the clear on that.
How do you factor in, because like I think the one thing I love and how you could make the Niners in a close game late when they're thinking about their playoff history, concerned about themselves, like the Dan Campbell aggressive nature of all things. Like,
I love that.
How do you fact? I want to come. I've always said I want to come see whatever is happening, like this, motherboard, this mainframe.
You're not allowed.
I know, but I just want to know what it looks like.
Come over anytime.
But like, how do you like enter Dan Campbell's aggressiveness into your computer system?
Just like that, actually.
Don't
That's
go
exactly
behind the
what it sounds
curtain.
like. No, you can come anytime you want. You just have to come to my house because I can't lift all this stuff and bring it elsewhere.
No, that makes
Is it
sense.
still in the
It's
boudoir?
an incredible amount of
It's
technology.
not in the boudoir.
Oh, you moved out of the boudoir.
It's not in in fact the main like house of the computer.
Yes.
Still in the boudoir, but the screens are not.
It's multiple rooms.
Now it's going
of
wow.
technology.
It's
Well,
turning,
I try
it's
to-
turning into a robot fortress now, and I
Actually
love
taking
it.
over the house.
I'm really just trying to get it as close to the router as possible, and then I can plug it in. It's really not
Is it
that.
cleaning your house yet, by the way?
Oop, actually,
That's
as
it.
we speak, it's
That's
cleaning
it.
my house. That's why I had to leave today. That's why I came into the office
Just
today.
a Roomba.
Incredible.
Exactly. It's basically just a Roomba.
The entire thing's just a Roomba. That's
Well,
it.
the good news about Dan Campbell is that he has a regular cadence to his aggressive play caller nature, which means it's not to say we can accurately predict it, but it's probably likely that they have plays on the play sheet that are specifically for certain situations. So it's less about like, he's not like, we think of it as this gamble, like he's rolling it. I don't really think he's rolling the dice as much as it seems. I think they're planning this ahead of time. They're practicing it. They have
Well, they're telling the refs ahead of time, and the refs are not comprehending, apparently.
I don't
according
want
to
to talk
some
about that,
historical issues.
but it didn't matter. It
Didn't matter.
You know what?
Right.
It ended
didn't.
up not mattering.
Justice was served in the end, right?
Ball don't lie.
Yeah.
Let's pick the game. And Cynthia, I'm going to save you for last,
Okay.
even though I know you now have to go potentially against the Roomba, which you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But
That is compelling.
It's a tough sitch for you. Mark, get us going.
I've kept asking these questions about the human condition versus technology. Like, I have long had a Shanahan, fascination, and I can't help but root for the Niners in many situations. But in this situation, Not only am I picking the Lions to win in overtime, 34-31, but I'm locking them up. You take it to the bank. And my lock record tells you there's a lot of viability to that. I'm deeply in last place.
If this doesn't go your way, you are flirting with going winless in the playoffs. So you're due. Put it that way.
I have chosen from what happens right in here in the center of the world, like over and over. And it doesn't always serve you, but it's going to serve me this time.
I know this is
one of these days, though.
One of these days.
I do think there is a path here. I think Jameson Williams has been getting better every week. Maybe he gets some big plays. Like that play where Laporta's on the outside and Amon-Ra's on the inside. Laporta's a week healthier. I feel like it works every single time where Laporta's essentially like they know what's coming. The defenses know what's coming. They can't stop it. And that they could keep up. And 7 points even does feel like a little too much. But I'm going head over heart. It's a rare case where I'm rooting hard against the Lions, but I am locking up the 49ers because I believe that's what's going to happen.
Interesting.
You're rooting for the Lions.
Absolutely.
I thought you said you were rooting hard.
You're locking
against
the Niners.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm rooting against my own rooting interest.
All right, now
I do believe they're the safest pick of the weekend.
And I'll say the same thing. I want the Lions to win.
Thank you.
I want people like Cynthia.
I'm taking it personally.
I want
Thank
Cynthia.
you. I appreciate
and
that you want
I
that.
want Barry Sanders to be happy,
Yep.
and I want Marshall Mathers to be happy. I want Kirk Gibson to be happy. Alan
Gimme.
Trammell,
Yep.
Lou Whitaker. I want everyone connected to Michigan sports to be happy.
Lee Iacocca.
Lee Iacocca. Isn't that Sue's best friend?
I don't know who he's best friends with.
Anyway, but however,
what about Big Sean?
Big Sean, no, he doesn't need it. Big Sean, I can't give him the love that he wants.
Big Sean's been on Dan's radar.
I got a big issue with Big Sean standing on the shoulder of giants. Put it that way. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, it is.
What about Bob Seger?
Love Seager.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure.
moves.
Against the wind.
Yep. That's what we're going to have to do.
What a heartland rocker that Seager is. That said, I'm going to pick the Niners. And as much as I do have reservations about Purdy, I'm nervous about this game. I can't go off on Purdy and then not have the same reservations about Goff, who can get cooked up by a defense and start making some funky decisions himself. And because of that, I do think San Francisco is just the better team. I don't know if they cover, but I think they win. Let's go 27-20. You know, Campbell will do some crazy shenanigans with a 2-point conversion, so it'll make the score weird. 27-25 Niners to the bowl. Okay.
All right. So while I told you that, look, any good analytics professional will tell you the math gives a 5-point win to the Niners. However, sometimes, much like the Eagles at the end of the Super Bowl, you have to take the low probability play. And there is no way on God's green earth that I am going to have any audio or video of me ever not picking my Lions in this situation. God knows that we won't be back here. It's not a sure thing to
This
be
is
back
your
here.
time. This is your moment, Cynthia.
Upset Lions 27-26.
Love it.
You're gonna get home and all your doors, the locks will be changed. The lights don't work.
I feel like this is like the script of a romantic comedy or something. At the very end, after years, she finally goes against the model right as she's like heading into matrimony. She found her guy. It all somehow is coming
40.
together.
Wait, listen. You want to know the weird connections here? Are you ready? Okay. Number one, I stayed in the hotel at the Renaissance Center, which is where my dad worked. That's where GM's headquartered, Renaissance Center, this week. Number two, my first marathon was in Detroit. You know who was in town that weekend? The Tampa Bay Bucks. I ate a sausage with tailgaters before the Bucks game after my marathon. That was my very first marathon. Number two.
Not sure what that
going, Cynthia.
Number three, I get my dog Gordy, Gordy, who
Red Wings.
introduces me to my fiance. Gordy did. So it's all about Detroit sports. That's really all that matters.
I love it.
I've been to that. I went to that 2004 when the Pistons, who didn't have like one star, they had like a few. Rip Hamilton with the thing on his face, you know,
That
the
was
whole
a tough
thing.
team too.
And you know who they beat? They beat the Lake Show.
Hello.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I was there. So sometimes Michigan gets the best of California.
Yeah, the flashy playboys from California will take a dirt nap.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from a coal town.
You'll get there next. I can't imagine what's going to happen when the Jets are in this position.
Yeah.
Weekend.
Tell me what would it
You're going to cry.
It would be a human victory for all of us.
You're going to cry. I mean, I'm telling you, I was like, is this for real?
That's why I'm hoping, Colin, I'm hoping, Cynthia, that it happens.
It's okay.
I'm hoping it happens.
I know.
You
People
deserve it.
literally, it was so funny in this bar that we're in. It's so loud. and people were walking in with Bucks jerseys on, and Michigan. This is who Lions fans are. For the first second, they're like, "Boo! Okay, you want a beer?" This goes, "Boo! Okay, how about a beer? Anyone?"
Cynthia, do you want to stick around and do a little news before we go?
You know it.
All right. By the way, let's check in on the lock standings. By the way,
Oh,
Oh,
boy.
why
Where we're at
should we?
right now?
Why should we?
Just where we're at.
Oh, boy.
The Wessling brothers, they're holding tight for second place. Look at Rosenthal this year, Cynthia. How annoying.
17-3.
Well, she's
annoying.
dealing with
Dare
this
you
on a
lock
weekly
them.
basis. So.
Does he have that smug little picture with a little crown in this show too?
No, that's
Oh God,
that's
Greg. How many graphics do you have of
game
yourself?
debut.
He's got
Check
this.
it out.
He's got this
8
smug
p.m.
little-
Eastern on NFL
Friday.
Network Fridays.
Yeah. He's
Fun
got
show.
this smug little
Plug
headshot,
machine.
and then it has this little tiny. This has this little tiny crown that comes, and he just looks.
Well,
so
I don't put
Greg.
the crown on.
I
That's
can't
our
imagine.
producer.
Hey.
I can't imagine that would be
Back
true.
to back.
Can we see? Let's see the second half standings too while we're here.
Oh wow, you created these.
Wow, look at the trophy too. You got to
Whoa.
check this
Yeah.
out
That is
on the
quite
Fast
the
Channel. That's an
trophy.
impressive trophy.
Just to let
Yeah.
you know, by the way, you're looking at my score thinking this person doesn't belong in the building, but like,
Here are the
say that.
standings.
no, I know, but like, I
Zeuser-
do things for
One
like
second.
for the best of the
Zeuser
show.
and
so-
Greg tied at 7-2 for the
Obviously,
second half
yeah.
title.
Well, it's funny you
The
mentioned
Wessling Let me get through the standings. It's a podcast. The Wessling brothers, they don't even get the right spelling on their last name anymore. They're 4-5, and
It's like an
Sestog
apostrophe.
3-6. The reverse showman at 3-6.
He's just waiting.
I'm ready to pounce when the
Let's-
time is right, which could be 2
Zach,
seasons
pounce.
from now.
Pounce.
Lions.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
I was gonna say.
It's funny because someone, a birdie from the NFL research department, contacted me during the week
Yes.
because you had said second half standing
birdie.
since week 9, and they pointed out that you were 2 games behind since week 9. So you've adjusted even the cutoff.
No,
that you were,
second half
Hold on.
standings.
Wait, what?
that he was
You're
actually 2 games
suggesting that
behind.
he's fudged the numbers here?
But someone was like, to be fair, he had said after week 9, actually you're 2 games up since
They
week
reached
9. I was
out
like,
to
oh, wow.
you out of pocket. They just came to
I'm
you.
not
Create
revealing my
this controversy.
sources, but
Wait,
it
did
was
you ask
told
them, or
to me.
did they reach out
It was
to you?
told to me. It wasn't really the NFL research.
This is what you need to know. I mean, if I said week 9, that I misspoke.
Isn't
it is
that the midway
second
point
half
of that season?
No, the season with the trust me, I have this all figured out. The regular season plus the playoffs, 22.
Okay. That's good. Congrats to the Bears. They won the NFC North, and Raiders are your
7-2.
AFC West champions.
See,
7-2
Dan, it's not
first
going to
place.
work well with Greg on this. He's not going to let it.
You,
I like
you
it.
have no
I
idea
like it.
how well it's working. 'cause
working.
It's driving him
No,
crazy.
it is driving.
All right, let's get to the news.
it.
Cynthia, a lot going on.
A lot.
All right, let's take a break and then we'll hit the news. All right, welcome back. It is the AFC NFC Championship game
Sorry.
preview. See, they're used to it. You're not. We
Not.
just went through both games, picked both games, and we're excited to watch how it all unfolds. But with Cynthia Freeland still in the house, she went against the machine,
Yeah.
just like Rocky went against Drago. Kasparov went against the robot. Now Cindy goes against her own machine.
Yeah.
Picking the Lions.
I do. Sometimes you got to take the lower probability outcome, buddy.
I love it. I'm just saying
That's
the
actually the-
machine's not going to be happy. That's all.
Not at
When you
all.
get home, the machine will let you know. I picture various highly dangerous circumstances involving cutlery and all of a sudden a meat cleaver goes flying by. Your machine has those like in the cartoons, the metal tubes with the hands that can do things, right?
Like the final 20 minutes of like 2001 Space Odyssey where like the entire operation turns against
exactly what
you
I'm thinking.
in your
Exactly.
own rental
Exactly.
apartment. So
Yep.
So be careful. I'm just saying, head on a swivel. Let's get to the news. And we'll start with the big one. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh is indeed coming back to the NFL. How about that? The Los Angeles Chargers. And I got to give the Chargers a little bit of credit here, Cynthia, because everything I've been led to believe about the Chargers is that in the end, they're going to cut a corner and they're not going to go all in and they'll just continue to exist as an organization. But this, to me, Cynthia, this move to bring in Jim Harbaugh, a deal for 5 years, according to reports, kind of completely reframes this organization. And with Justin Herbert in place, maybe a bright tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a few things that I really like about this, but I have to give a nice little shout out to the Chargers social because that whole like evoking like signs of like the Pope, them
Right.
picking a new Pope was really funny.
The
So
smoke coming
the
from
smoke coming
yeah.
from that was really good. That was really good.
they're feeling themselves.
As they should be.
Yes.
I mean, I feel not that it was a foregone conclusion. I think they went through the process and they did the things that they needed to do to make sure and vet that this was the right choice. But I feel like this was their goal all along, and they wanted to kind of make sure they were doing the right thing. To me, this is a huge difference maker. I think Justin Herbert will now have some stability. A 5-year contract is hopefully a long time. I mean, we know that sometimes that hasn't worked out in the past, but in this case, I believe them that they're going to give him a nice long leash in order to hire the right people, do what he needs to do. And I think that they probably feel like, look, we know that Patrick Mahomes is still in this division, but there's some opportunities here, especially with the Raiders are still confusing. The Broncos are pretty confusing. I think that they're like, okay, we, just get into the dance. Doesn't necessarily mean we need to always win, but get into the dance, and this gives them the best opportunity to do so.
I think it's going to be really interesting to watch the team building side of this, because we're going to get the Harbaugh offense, and their tight end room is going to change vastly. Like, they're going to want to be big sets, heavy sets, and like their running back room is going to change. And it's like, I think what Justin Herbert has been asked to do through multiple play callers is going to change a lot. And I think that the relationship between Justin Herbert and the coaching staff for years has been a big problem here, and that changes entirely. Now, they are two totally different personalities based on what little we know about Justin Herbert and what we do know about Jim Harbaugh. My question always with Harbaugh is like, cool, everyone's super excited right now. When we started the show, Harbaugh was phasing out of the Niners, and by the time he left, people weren't that unhappy to see him go. Like, it came and went, and that's fine. That's NFL coaching. But it's like, where will we be 3 years from now? That's all. That's my only concern with the Harbaugh experience a little bit. But otherwise, the Chargers have an identity.
He stopped wearing khakis too. Perhaps it was the khakis.
He did.
The people that weren't happy to see him go, though, I think were primarily his general manager, Trent Baalke, and his boss, Jed York, like where he got into these battles with them. I don't think the players were like, maybe they got sick of it, what he went after, but it's just hard to argue with a guy that's been successful literally everywhere. That there's no exception to him hitting like a home run essentially in every single spot, and it's always with quarterbacks. So as a Justin Herbert fan, I'm really excited, even if he brings in Gregg Roman. And it's like, I don't love Gregg Roman if he's the play caller, but maybe he'll have a different role. And then you think about, well, Gregg Roman was the coordinator with Alex Smith, who's very different than Colin Kaepernick, and they turned Alex Smith's career around. Like, Alex Smith had that game against the Saints with Gregg Roman and Harbaugh. And so I just got to...
What if he brings in Joe Barry?
Right, give some credence. Pep Hamilton's available. Does he have a history with Joe Barry? I don't know.
I'm just messing with you.
David Shaw's around. No, then I won't be happy. Ajiro Evero. All of those guys have coached with Harbaugh before. And so you have to assume he is getting personnel say and or control and will be involved in the GM hire. So that it's all something to watch, but in a way that even though they have Herbert, I still think Harbaugh will break through in a bigger way here in Los Angeles, and it'll be really great for them just as an organization.
It's a home run hire. It's a no-brainer. It's when we started the NFL, that's when he came in 2011 during the lockout season. We went through his whole career. He disappears. Now he's back. I just feel like football is a weirder, more interesting place with Jim Harbaugh back in the NFL. I'm excited. You know who else is excited? This is one of the best missives I've ever seen released in terms of the passion jumping off the page. Here's Dean Spanos, who, you haven't heard a lot of passionate Spanos. Jim Harbaugh is football personified, and I can think of no one better to lead the Chargers forward. The son of a coach, brother of a coach, and father of a coach, who himself was coached by names like Schembechler and Ditka. For the past 2 decades, Jim has led hundreds of men to success everywhere he's been as their coach. Stylized, the ital on there.
Good job, ID.
And today, Jim Harbaugh returns to the Chargers, this time as our coach. Who has it better than us? He is excited.
What a month for
that, of course, the old Harbaugh
Can I just
Sound
What a
bite.
month for Michigan sports. It's kind of lost in the shuffle that most of these Lions, a lot of these Lions fans are Michigan fans too, and they got a title there, and they got to be very happy that Minnesota and Denver weren't interested in Jim Harbaugh over the last 2 years.
Well, they also lost
this is
their
the time
coach. I think
that made it work. I'm just saying, but
Yeah.
they got their title. They got their
Well, the one thing I will point out is if Jim Harbaugh, what we've seen, how he's evolved as a coach over these years at Michigan, I will say it's probably even not as evident for us what he is capable of doing, because all of the time that you have to spend recruiting your guys and then keeping them and then making sure they're happy, so they're going to go in the transfer portal, and then making sure that they get paid enough for this NIL, like all of that's now taken off of
Bye-bye.
I would hate. That would be really hard to be a head coach.
Well, and that job changed during his
Right,
time
during
there
his
too.
tenure.
Entirely.
And he was
So,
ready to go for a couple of years,
You
and
can
now finally
imagine
lined
how
up.
much,
Yeah.
now actually devoting his time to coaching, we'll probably see even more of how he's evolved than we would have.
tough spot for Antonio Pierce. You got Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Andy Reid twice.
I love
Good
Antonio
luck.
Pierce.
did
I
too.
will punch anyone for him. I don't know. I won't actually punch
Whoa.
anyone, but I will go to the mat for him because yes, I'll pop champagne for him. No, he's a really great leader. Really great leader. I've known him for a long time. He's those guys will run through a wall for him, and it's not even a joke. So
You could tell that. I mean,
Yep.
I think they changed.
They're looking
entirely.
for a Dan
Oh, they're
Campbell type
amazing.
reinvention
They're
there. And we'll see.
amazing. Yeah.
All right, another big hire here. The Panthers are expected to hire Bucs offensive coordinator Dave Canales.
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 Not like so hard with the A, but like Canales. Canales.
Canales.
A canal,
Canales.
It's actually
a
Canales.
waterway.
Canales. Dave. No, wait, no, it's
Dave
completely gone.
Canales.
I'm going to say Dave. You say his last name.
Canales.
Dave
Canales.
is the new head coach of the Panthers. He is formerly of the Buccaneers, the offensive coordinator there. Rap Sheet had this on Thursday. Like the hire, Cynthia, because of it makes sense, right? He's a guy that's respected. He got Baker coached up and turned him into someone that thinks faster, plays faster, and that's what Bryce Young needs to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. He doesn't have a long
She's
track.
not in on Dave.
She's just begun to make her point.
She did the.
He's had one. He's had 1 year as an OC.
Yeah.
I don't have a huge, lengthy track record for him, so there's a little bit more of unknown here and the unknown factor. He did figure out. I know that Todd Bowles was banging his head against the wall trying to figure out a run game for several years now, and he figured out maybe it's short passes to running back, but that still is a proxy for a run game. So he's had some things to figure out and some challenges to work through. This, to me, will really be dictated by who else he hires. Is he going to surround Bryce Young with the talent that so you saw last year in Texas for the Texans? They had Gerard Johnson, who was he came from Elite 11. He was a quarterback himself. He was there specifically to work with CJ Stroud. You saw Bobby Slowick. He had a whole game plan. So it will really, I'm sure he could be great. And he just doesn't have the track record where I can feel so wonderful about it. It will depend on the hires and who he surrounds himself with.
It's a meteoric rise. He was just a QB coach.
That's what I'm
for
saying.
Seattle, and even then didn't have a ton of experience doing that, and did a great job with Geno. And you can see some similarities between Geno and Baker in terms of getting the ball out quicker, an offense that all made sense. It's kind of crazy though, because Bucs fans were unhappy with Canales for a large part of this season, and I think maybe the expectations were too high. But I think it was play sequencing that some a lot of good plays, but a lot of early down runs that just weren't working. They just stuck with it. And eventually it got to the point where it was okay instead of just being bad. And then you go from that, and they were frustrated as late as week 18 in that game where, and I think that's unfair. They did well with the talent that they have, to having a couple big playoff games. And he certainly must have won them over in the interview room, because they interviewed everyone, and his track record was less than some, and they go with an in-house guy as GM and Dan Morgan and Dave Canales. So it's a little different than maybe we were expecting. But the whole point was he must have convinced them he's the right guy for Bryce Young. That was all they really cared about, and that's what he sold them on.
Well, I think he did this with Geno Smith. He did this with Baker Mayfield, two guys that were on the out career-wise. I don't know. This organization stands out to me other than others because it's just cool, you took the job, but I think other candidates would have looked a little sideways at the ownership, the whole structure there, the way that things have happened. And so what is his power structure? How much, and I, part of it is you have to, like you said, you have to convince ownership that you can bring the right staff. I don't even know if that conversation happened. We just don't know.
You know what's interesting is he worked with Dan Morgan for 7 years. I didn't even think about that because he was a receivers coach forever in Seattle, and Dan Morgan was in Seattle in the front office. So they have a working relationship. But that's what it comes down to sometimes, like just people that you've worked together.
Trust. Well, I will say the thing about Dan Morgan that's interesting is despite not doing TV, he has a John Lynch-like personality. If I had to say kind of what he acts like former player, really good communicator. I got a chance to talk to him pretty extensively. So great communicator, understands kind of what they're looking for. So in that regard, I think the communication will be great. But again, to me, this comes down to who's your OC, who's your DC, who are you, how are you, what's going on with your O-line? Because that wasn't great last year, that O-line. And that's going to be even details like that, they matter a ton. So and it also shows you that this year offensive coaches are what people are looking for. High demand for offensive coaches because the fact that Mike Vrabel's out there without a job and a guy with no track record getting one because he's known as an offensive mind, that shows you something, right? It gives us some information on how that works.
What do you because he became an OC and he's calling his own plays. And there's a lot of narrative around when you have to do that for the first time in a season or in a game or in a critical moment in a game, it's your head is spinning and that comes to experience. But for him to go from where he was a couple years ago to be now the head coach and forget all the personality business, but just to manage a game, that leap to me seems there's no proof he can do that.
Well, the biggest concern is to me, and Morgan might be a Lynch type and be a good leader and have a good nose for talent and this guy might work, but the guy they're answering to, if I'm Dave
Tepper.
No.
Canales.
First call I'm making before I take the job is Frank Reich. I'm what? So what am I getting into here?
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Am I doomed?
No.
That's what I would do, I'm saying.
Why are you looking for negative things?
Because I got to be a realist.
I would call anyone who works for David Tepper's hedge fund and be like, how did you make so much money? Because that's going to be what he wants to talk to me about is whatever that translates to. Because I need to figure out how to speak his language. Because this guy isn't like a lot of the other.
I'm just saying.
This guy is a billionaire.
There's only 32 of these jobs. So we shouldn't be surprised that Canales or anybody else.
You nailed it.
Nice. Is
Good
jumping toward it. I would just be very, very nervous. Anybody that enters that organization.
Sometimes it's better not to know. Maybe it's better not to.
Two ways to look at it.
Frank Reich had come off of an exit very recently, so maybe it's better not to be hey, this all new to me. This will be fun. Why not?
Hey,
Roll
is this
the dice.
guy gonna ruin my life? Just FYI.
He's not gonna ruin his life.
Just a little heads up.
By the way, you get paid if you don't make it through a year or two anyway.
Right. It is.
But the dream is to be a head coach. I would just say if I've never been a head coach before, you never know if
But
you're
you're
going to get to be
in
one
the NFC
again.
South too. And that is a very
Am I entering a healthy situation?
Think about it. Okay, well, go get therapy. I mean, we all do. We don't necessarily work at the healthiest place. I go to therapy every week. Let's just go with that. So, but look
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
Yeah.
Yep.
One option.
One option. A great one actually. I really like BetterHelp. But the reality is you're in the NFC South. People get pretty happy when you get W's. So if you're in it.
I hear all that.
I'd rather take
Cynthia, that all makes sense.
I think it's the 1,000% raise that's really kind of overlooked in the it's tough for any human to not take a 1,000%.
If you wanted to hire me
what he's gonna get
as your general manager, heck yeah. But also roll the dice, have faith in yourself, especially in a division that's. Did anyone really want to win that division this year? I mean, the Bucs made it far, but it just felt like we were kind of this one. No one thought that was going to happen. So that's a good spot to be in.
I hope. Listen, if you have one of the 32 chairs, it's a good spot.
If you have one of the 32 chairs in a down division, it's an even better spot.
But some coaches.
If your quarterback is for real, but yes.
Some coaches, I would imagine out there would pass in this job for the reasons that I'm illustrating or pointing out.
Sure, but
not Dave though.
Not
speaking of Dave, I won't say who it was, but just threw that name out there. But someone that works in the newsroom that's known to be a Panthers fan historically. One year, his favorite team went to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say who my source is,
right?
But he had a bottle of champagne, and the night ended after a Carolina loss in Super Bowl 50 with him sitting alone in a hot tub with a bottle of champagne, and his girlfriend left him shortly thereafter.
It's on brand.
All that is just to say.
This person, that's so
I won't say
sad.
because I don't reveal my sources.
I mean, he's also been a multiple-time guest of the show. So
Greg,
if you listen
please,
to the show.
please.
I didn't hear about
listeners would
that
know.
though. I'll have to
Yeah.
figure it out though.
I
I did not hear about that.
I didn't mean you. I meant
She
for our
left him
list.
that night. I don't recall that.
Yeah,
wrinkle.
he.
I
You
don't
know
know.
It's
what?
around that time.
Good.
Maybe I'm conflating.
I don't want someone that's going to be with me when things are down. Let me know. Fine. Whatever. Kick me when I'm down.
Good.
Makes it easier.
But this
Be
Good call.
tempted
Good
into
call.
coming back. you
this
know?
person texted me. Panthers now have a sneaky hot HC in Dave Canales.
He is hot.
M-analysis.
I don't
I'm
like.
going to be honest with you. Wow. He is hot.
But you know what I've
checks
noticed?
boxes.
Like the
Nice
head
jawline
coaches
on it.
now, like unattractive, dumpy head coaches are not being hired as head coaches anymore.
No, that's
Wayne Fonts isn't
being-
getting hired anymore.
No, they're being dismissed. Left
Not
and
to
right.
go after Wayne, but
I was about
Detroit
to say,
legend.
you just leave him alone. You leave Wayne out of this. You leave Wayne out of this.
that's a good connection because I believe Canales, I know, is Mexican American, so he's one of the first Latino head coaches in the history of the sport.
I don't know, man. We're gonna have to
think
check
you're right.
out the old family tree on that one. Let's move on. Vic Fangio is playing a little hot potato because he is now going from Miami, where he is out as their DC. He's now locked in. Is it official yet that he's the
Miami.
Eagles DC? If it's not,
The reporting is yes.
okay. So
happening.
Yeah.
So there you go. Fangio, who is a
Fangio.
well-known figure in this realm. Remember, we were throwing flowers at the feet of the Dolphins for getting Fangio.
I'll be honest with you. Whoever gets that job, give him to someone with that less experience. That's a good defense. They got a lot of pieces there.
So, Vic, it didn't work out in Miami, but Philly's like, you got to be better than our last guy and the other guy that we booted upstairs, but kept the camera
boy.
on him, humiliated
boy.
the guy for a couple of months. Anyway, Fangio to Philly. Thoughts?
It's unique that it happened this late. I want to know the backstory.
Same.
My gut tells me that Vic Fangio, and I know there's all these reports that he wasn't getting along with some of the players, and I don't know if there was any conflict with the coaching staff, all that. Like, I believe all that, but I still am guessing because of the timing and everything. It's like he just wanted to go to Philadelphia, and he got his way, and he got his way out, and they wanted to hire him last year. They would have hired him last year if not for this whole confusing setup that they couldn't hire him because he had come in for the Super Bowl and they had to do all the interview. It was all this stuff with Jonathan Gannon. They lost the draft pick because of it. And so I think his family's in Pennsylvania too. He wanted to be closer to that. And I think it was just a rare case of a guy kind of forcing his way out and getting to where he wanted to go. And it's good for the Eagles.
Yeah, it came so close to happening before, and that's what he wanted. And it's like you kind of look back at like the earlier week cleaning out of everyone in Philadelphia. They must have known like we've got this guy in our back pocket, and he's proven. I would say you're also walking into a situation where if things go south on Nick Sirianni, over the first couple of months next year, it's like, all right, we'll see how long that coaching staff lasts. But I mean, Vic Fangio at this age, go do what you want to do.
He could be the interim coach by October. You never know.
When I look at this, I think Mike McDaniel's kind of reshaping and retooling. He's not the only person to exit Miami right now. So if you're not happy, don't force someone to be there. You know, it's not like he's going to be like.
He never seems happy, though.
Right.
Mark, you've had nice interaction with him.
I wouldn't belabor it. I told them that like when the Niners went to the Super Bowl, you have these like rooms where you go and interview, and he's sitting alone at a table. And I thought, well, there's no one else there. I can go talk to the defensive coordinator. And I know this is not holistically who he is, but he couldn't have been grumpier or more agitated that I had sat down to visit with him and wanted me gone as quickly as a human could be gone. So I was
Did you
like,
ask him if it was a must-win game?
I did not. I asked.
Okay,
I thought I asked one pertinent question, and I said, "This is not working out," and like I don't want to force the relationship.
Made a journalistic decision to get the hell up.
I'm going to pursue someone else
and move away from Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah. So
Javon Holland, their safety, there was a bunch of little social media posts from Dolphins players seeming to celebrate. Not as much as the Bucs did, where they did like a dance that their coach got fired before the game, which I've never seen that in sports. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was
Wednesday night. Javon Holland did a video where he kicked rocks, and which was like go kick rocks, Vic Fangio. But in case anyone didn't understand it, his
got to get that guy.
Like his dad is coaching. His dad, who's a coach, like retweeted and said, "Everyone loves the iPhone, but no one wants the iPhone 1.0. #upgrade." It was like, whoa. They did. They weren't fans
Wow.
What's going on?
of Fangio, but he's a good coach, and I think they did a good job defensively this year.
Some red flags there, by the way. But
if it's not working, I think it's smart to cut ties fast.
Right.
You know, like let him go. It seems like a win-win here. He seems to be happier and more near his family, paying a higher tax bracket. Then they're happier down there, figuring out someone new. This is a really attractive job. If I'm a young defensive coordinator or someone that's like maybe like on my way up, I'm like, somebody get me to Miami. Like that's a great job. You have really great assets on that team.
finally in the news, here we go.
What is it?
Congratulations, Greg, for all your moral grandstanding when we talk about the hot butts and
What?
all pious, always getting on me for celebrating guys losing their job.
Oh,
Joe
yeah.
Barry is out
That kind
in
of hot
Green
butt.
Bay. So
was
there
like,
you go. Do
what?
a little dance, Greggy.
There's no
You got the
dance.
DC canned.
I'm hardly a unique on the island that they
Uniquely.
they underperformed.
This is you.
You've called for everyone's head who's gotten fired this year.
What?
On Game Day View you have. You're like
Something about calling for
you
head.
talk about
criticize.
you talk about
Wow,
that
Greg.
standing for the lock of the
Wow.
week.
Talk
You know
about
what
a
his
split personality.
you know what his standing for? He's 100% on this guy's getting
Wow.
canned.
Wow, Greg.
Well, it's more predictions.
Your predictions
and you
on
coulda
that are-
seen, you could have seen this
Wow.
coming for Joe Barry.
That's not the way she put it. You called for heads to roll.
No.
Wow.
Vindictive.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Joe Barry's out.
Just a human man.
Let's
No.
bring this plane in
wanna
for
know-
landing, everybody.
I want to know what Jair
Yes.
Alexander's doing there. Like I think there's a couple of things here. Like we'll see if they can get.
I say make him the DC.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be great? I'm calling the play.
What'd I do? Cynthia, you're a gem. Good luck to you this weekend. What's your fan you working the game? What you doing this weekend?
No, I'm gonna watch from home.
Very
I need my emotional support dog with me at all times.
You have the dog with you.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I will not have any social media on. This is
Very nice.
But you're
That's
so you're recently engaged.
Yeah.
And so does your partner is he not a Lions fan?
He's from New Jersey.
Do you
So
want
he's-
him in your realm when this is happening, or do you just have to do this on your own? It's a dangerous place to be, maybe.
Well, he's pretty supportive about it. He's like very chill.
Mhm.
So he's got a nice
Surfer
calming.
bro,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's like surfer, but like also a banker. It's kind of a strange mix. But
Surf
like,
and banker.
Surfer banker. I like that.
surfer banker.
Good hyphen.
You know, and so he's kind
Also a
of
crime fighter at night.
yes. Also, but he goes to bed early, so you have to fight crime like between the hours of like 5 to 7 because he works East Coast.
Sure, a
hours.
dusk crime
A
fighter.
dusk crime
Yeah,
fighter.
okay.
That really.
Where all the crime goes down in the big
Yes.
city.
Yes.
All right, well, enjoy that. And
Thank you.
like I said, head on a swivel with the Roomba.
I
after
know that
going
Roomba's
against the
coming to
machine.
get me.
We'll be back on Sunday. It is the big one. It is Championship Sunday. So we'll recap those games. And until then, you know what you got to do. Heed the call. Canales.